you looking for somebody to approve the minutes?
I need someone to make a motion to approve the minutes or to make changes to the minutes.
Sure, I can make a motion to approve the minutes. I didn't see any issues. Would somebody like to second?
Tom has something to say, but he is on mute. Tom, you're on mute. Tom, you were trying to say something. You're on mute. I don't want to proceed because I believe Tom has some changes he wanted to bring forward. Okay, Tom, you're going.
Yeah, were the changes I recommended, were they not circulated to the members? Jill?
I circulated just to the legislative assistant.
And Jill, did you circulate them to the members of the committee? No.
No, she didn't.
I did not circulate them. If you wanted to read them into the record, that would be great. We can capture them.
Ted, because I'm not that, can you read them? Because if I go back out to my internet, my email, I will lose you fellows again. So I can only do one thing on this one screen. I can't rub my head and my stomach at the same time, in other words, being a man. You with me?
I'll look after it. Tom sent me some suggestions for changes to the meeting minutes from April 14th. It's on email. I will read them one at a time. Item 1, there's 3 of them. On page 1, item number 2, first paragraph. One sec. Tom, can you mute yours, by the way? The committee, to better and more clearly record the opinions of the committee that are contrary to the opinion of the designers and is shown on their submissions. That's the addition they'd like to make. In the original minutes, it says the committee discussed potential changes to the meeting minutes. And Tom would like to say the committee, to better and more clearly record the opinions of the committee that are contrary to the opinions of the designers and is shown in their submissions. So we wanted to add that sentence to it. The second submission was on page 4, or amendment. Page 4, first paragraph. Currently it reads, responding to a follow-up question, Menendez clarified that windowless bedrooms are permitted, ... Tom wanted to add before that, the committee voiced their opinion that this aspect of the windowless rooms was, for this development, quote, pushing the envelope of what is allowed within the Canadian Builders Code, unquote. The third amendment Tom would like to suggest is also on page 4. In the final paragraph, it says, Menendez provided an overview of the Zen architectural style and the decorative features to conceal mechanical features such as those of stone or planters to hide mechanical equipment. And then he wanted to add a paragraph that says, the committee pointed out that there was no discernible Zen features shown in the design. He wanted that to replace the current line, which says, the committee expressed a contrary opinion, noting that the Zen features are not entirely used in this aspect of the development. Does that capture it okay for you, Tom? I think so.
Yeah, well, that's my notes from the meeting. It was Christina who used the adjective. It was pushing the envelope of the Canadian Building Code to have windowless bedrooms deep within the building. And then the other thing was quite simple. They talked about Zen, and it was something very important, but there was no Zen that any of us could see on the drawing. So I think it should be pointed out that we are not, we can read drawings, and the developer should be aware that we have opinions on things.
Thank you, Tom.
Is there any debate or?
Any discussion from anybody?
No, I agree.
Okay, so Tom has moved to make the amendments. Christina, if you're is seconding it. So I guess I'll put on any more discussion. Hearing none. Do I have a motion? We'll do a vote to approve the minutes as amended for April 14th. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Hearing none, the minutes as amended are passed.
Ted, can I ask Christine a question regarding the windows?
Sure, sure.
Is it confirmed that it is allowed as per the NBC that there can be bedrooms without windows, or that's not part of our scope here?
Well, I need some help on that, but as far as I can tell, there is legislation that allows the possibility of a bedroom do not have windows. Although we understand that with the changings in the planet and how do we understand about what is a dwelling, I think it's good to have windows, right? So my question was just to be a little bit aware that they were pushing that to the limit. There were situations that very, very deep dwellings would only have a very small window. And I think it's really hard to live
I
in a
actually agree
flat.
with you. I think
Yeah.
the NBC calls any bedroom to have windows, so.
Well, I would like to ask everybody, but I'm not 100% because there are possibilities that you don't call it a bedroom, so people are using that. Is a strange thing, in my opinion, but I'm not very aware. Anyway, I would like to listen to people, that's all.
I got to interject here. This is
I,
very good conversation, but it's absolutely not in line with the business of the committee right now.
Sorry,
Something that we
Tanya.
can take offline. I'm
Just
sorry.
I checked this Canada Building Code, and you can have windowless bedrooms under the new code, unfortunately.
There we
Thanks,
go.
Tom.
Moving on. Item number 3 is the approval of the order of business and the approval of additions and deletions. Are there any suggestions for changes?
I had an addition. We had talked about Center Plan Package B that is currently going through a number of committees within HRM. We're not on that list, and it's my understanding from staff that is not within our mandate. But I'm just wondering why that is, and is it possible for us to get council to add that to our mandate? Because I think of all the committees that exist, that is pretty important for us.
That's right.
So,
Okay, so I
Mr.
think-
Chair, if I could just intervene for 1 second.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I have spoken with planning, and they would like to come and have an exchange of ideas with you folks next meeting on July the 14th. As far as your mandate, it is outlined in your terms of reference of what your mandate is. So in order for council to amend your terms of reference, it would be a process. It couldn't just happen with, a council saying, sure, you should, that should go forward to DAC, but they absolutely would, they're more than willing to come on July the 14th for information purposes and for an exchange of ideas.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. I think when that happens, maybe we can make some suggestions and try to find a way to get it in front of the right people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we won't have any changes to the orders of business. Can I have a motion to approve
Motion
the
to
order of
approve.
business? Seconded.
Second, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay, the approval of the order of business is set. Item 4, business arising out of the minutes, there was none. Item 5 is a call for a declaration of conflict of interest. If anybody has a conflict of interest in either of the two applications, please state so. Hearing none. Deferred business, item number 6, there is none. Item 7, correspondence. Jill, do we have any correspondence, petitions, or delegations?
No, there was none received.
Thank you very much. Item 8, information items brought forward. There are none. That takes us to item 9. We're going to go to 9.1.1, which is case number 23056, which is a level 3 site plan approval for 169 Wise Road, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. Claire Tews, planner from the Halifax from HRM, will be presenting to us. Representing the applicant is Saeed Sarkosh from Parsco Engineering Construction. They'll be available to answer questions or clarifications afterwards. I want to say thank you, Claire. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Ted. So I'll just see if I can share my screen. It says the host has disabled attendee screen sharing. Jill, are you able to provide me with access? Okay, can somebody confirm whether or not my screen is showing? Perfect, thank you.
Good.
Okay, I'll begin then. Good evening, Chair and members of the Design Advisory Committee. My name is Claire Tews, and I'm a planner with Land Development and Subdivision Group. I'm here today to present a site plan approval application to the committee for 169 Wise Road. So the subject property fronts onto Wise Road with flankage property lines on Pelzant Street and George Street. The lots on either side of the subject property along Wise Road are commercial uses. Across the road from the subject property on Wise Road are a mix of commercial and high-density residential uses. Opposite the subject property on Pelzant Street is a mix of commercial uses and low-density residential. And behind the building along both sides of George Street is low-density residential. This is the subject property. It's zoned CEN 2, Center 2. And this is the zone in context with the surrounding zones. This is a look at the property from Wise Road. And here's the property from the corner of Wise Road and Pelzant Street. And another look at the corner of Pelzant Street and George Street. Again, this property is zoned CEN 2 under the Regional Center Land Use Bylaw. There was previously a commercial building located at 169 Wise Road, but the property has since been vacant since 2017. The proposal before the committee is for an 8-story, 113-unit residential building with 1 level of commercial space and 2 levels of underground parking. The proposed building is classified as a tall mid-rise building under the land use bylaw, as it falls within 20 to 26 meters in height. Here is a look from the corner of Pelzant Street and George Street. And here's a nighttime rendering from the corner of Wise Road and Pelzant Street. Here we have another nighttime rendering of the grade-related units, which are proposed for George Street. Here is the proposed site plan. I believe a PDF of these slides will be posted online, so if you can't see anything, you'll be able to zoom in there if you have further questions about it. This application is classified as a level 3 site plan approval as the proposed floor area is greater than 5,000 square meters. The applicant has successfully completed a pre-application and met all land use bylaw requirements. In particular, the applicant has demonstrated that the proposal meets the site plan approval requirements of Part 6. A level 3 site plan approval requires a website which contains information about the proposal, including plans and renderings and contact information for the developer. A sign on all street frontages of the site, which includes a rendering, contact information, and the website address. A public meeting, which is advertised and held in accordance with sections 23, 24, and 25 of the land use bylaw. And a final report with record of the feedback received from the website, the public meeting, and any other correspondence which shall be submitted at the time of their full site plan approval application. This applicant has their website under construction and the poster is scheduled to be posted next week. Scheduling of the public meeting is also underway and will be completed before the applicant applies for their full application. Part 6 of the land use bylaw regulates aspects of the development that are subject to site plan approval, and it is based on these criteria that the committee is asked to make a recommendation to the development officer. The numbers in brackets are references to the associated sections of the land use bylaw. Chapter 2 outlines the requirements for at-grade private open spaces. This proposal features 2 small at-grade private open spaces, one along Wise Road and the other along Pelzan Street. These spaces abut the public sidewalk and this access shall be maintained. The proposed spaces have dimensions greater than 3 meters by 5 meters and therefore the medium scale design requirements apply. The landscaping plan demonstrates that barrier-free access and permanent seating are provided and stone pavers and vegetation are proposed as the ground cover. The proposed weather protection is a cantilever over the main commercial entrances and recesses over the over the residential entrances. So here is a snip from the landscaping plan. It shows that there's permanent seating, vegetation, and bicycle racks proposed on Wise Road. And here is the inset for the at-grade private open space on Pelzan Street. It shows the barrier-free bench and the soft landscaping. Chapter 3 outlines the building design requirements. So this applicant has achieved street wall articulation through changes in colors, materials, projections, and recesses, which continue around the sides. The pedestrian entrance is distinguished and weather protected by changes in colors, materials, projections, and recesses. Ground floor commercial unit has clear glass glazing between the required 50 to 80%, and weather protection is achieved through cantilevered entrances to commercial space and recessed entrances to the residential space. The exposed foundation is clad with materials consistent with the overall design, and the building top distinction is accomplished with a change in materials and a 0.15 meter projecting parapet. All rooftop mechanical features are visually integrated into the sign of the building and concealed from the public view at the street line. So this is the proposed front elevation facing Wise Road. This is the proposed elevation facing Pelzan Street. This is the proposed front elevation facing George Street. And here's the street wall rendering to demonstrate the changes in colors and materials, the cantilever, the bike parking, and the clear glass glazing. Motor vehicle access is from Pelzan Street and its exit is onto George Street. It's internal to the building and it meets the street wall requirements. Again, pedestrian connection is from the public street to the at-grade private open space, and the utility features shall be enclosed within a projection or recess or hidden with opaque screening. This property is not designated as a heritage property. It is not located within a heritage conservation district, and therefore there are no requirements. For Chapter 6, the common building entrances, walkways, and at-grade private open spaces will be illuminated, and the subject site is not within a view terminus, so 155 does not apply. And finally, variation is not requested for this application. To conclude, the Design Advisory Committee is being asked to make recommendations pertaining to the site plan approval design requirements of Part 6 of the Land Use Bylaw as it pertains to the proposed building design for 169 Wise Road, Dartmouth. Thank you, and are there any questions?
Very much, Claire. Floor is open for questions. Christina?
Yeah, my question is, it's very unusual that we don't see the plans, the interior plans of the building, especially if there is so many things about the ground floor or the first floor. How come we don't have enough information? I don't know where is the entry, for example.
Christina, were you sent the memo with all of the plans earlier in the week?
With all the plans for this?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't think I did. I'm so sorry.
No problem. Maybe Jill or myself can email it to you so you have it to look at
Oh, thank you.
while we discuss. Yeah.
There was plans that was emailed to the committee last Friday, and they do have interior drawings. It's quite a big package. It's like 120 pages. And Christina, you should have been on that email list. So I don't know what
Well,
happened.
I don't seem that I haven't seen it, but
Yeah.
if you can forward now to me, I will let you know if I see it or not.
I also didn't receive that memorandum for this particular property. I did receive it for the other file that we're
Me
talking
too.
about tonight, but
Me
not
too.
not this one.
Yeah, the other one I did for sure.
I received both of them, so I don't know about the rest.
In the original email last Friday was actually a link because the packages were considered too big to go into an email. Subsequent to that, there was an email sent out that had the package just for the other one on Pleasant Street. But the only way that you would know about this one is if you had received the email last Friday that had the
Yeah,
links
the
in
most
them.
recent email I had was from Monday, so I didn't receive that email on Friday.
I will resend the email. It did go out on Friday and there were 3 links in it. It's just because they were very large packages and it went out to the entire committee, but I certainly can resend it.
Who has seen this package? I'll speak up if you have. I have.
Yeah, I have as well.
It's Nancy here. I got it.
I have it as well. Yeah.
And me as well.
It's 5. Okay, so at least we still have, most of us have actually reviewed the package enough for a quorum. Perhaps if you haven't reviewed the package, I mean, you can ask questions, but maybe you shouldn't be participating in the vote if you're not fully informed about certain things. I'll leave it up to you to decide. Questions for Claire? Jonathan, go ahead.
Are we getting a presentation from the developer as well, or just this one from planning?
The developer has Saeed Sarkosh from the engineering firm. They're available to answer any questions that we have.
Okay.
But there's no presentation prepared.
Okay. Then I just want to start with reviewing the package. There was some discrepancies that I had a bit of trouble with, mainly between the renderings and the drawings seemed very incongruous to me. And I don't know where that comes from. The drawings show sort of a top level material change, as well as a material change through the center of each of the elevations that run from top to bottom, but I don't see any of that in the rendering. So I don't know if that's a question for staff or not, why those things aren't showing, because I don't see the point in having renderings that aren't showing the details of the building.
Saeed, are you there? Are you able to comment on the renderings? I would say from a review perspective, the renderings should, for the most part, match what we are reviewing. However, it's the elevations which are being reviewed against the legislation. The renderings are more for, to get a sense of what the building will look like. So if it doesn't completely match, they're a requirement for the completeness check, but they aren't the technical drawings that we're using to actually review against the land use bylaw.
Right, and I understand that. I just, because these renderings are going to go up on the website, they're going to be shown on site to show this building, but it's not actually showing the building. So to me, that completeness check isn't well complete. I feel like that's a bit of a fail on this one, because I get more from the drawings, but the rendering, the first time I saw it, I was like, this is not good at all. But the drawings show a lot more detail.
Hi, it's Erin. Can you hear me?
Ted, may I come in there, Ted?
I think Erin's got some useful context. I'm going to let her speak first, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to really sort of reiterate what Claire said. The renderings are for contextual purposes. We are not reviewing them to make sure that they match the elevation plans that we do review against the bylaw requirements. It would be the applicant's responsibility to make sure that those renderings are accurate.
Yeah, I understand, but at the same time I don't, because I know the renderings are just sort of for context, but if they're not showing the building in question, what's the point of having them?
Well, and if they're not accurate, we can have that conversation with the applicant. If you want to build it into your recommendation, or Sean and Claire can just make a note and make sure that we double back with the applicant and make sure that they're corrected.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful. I don't think the renderings that we've seen shouldn't necessarily be shown on the website, because they aren't depicting the building in question.
Sure, fair.
How different are they, Jonathan?
Because it's me, it's all about materials. So it's not the excuse me, the renderings are just showing a white building. Sorry. And I'm seeing at least 4 or 5 different materials on this building, and none of those are on the rendering.
Sorry, Ted, just to interrupt, I was just wondering, Claire, do you, I know you have the renderings on your presentation. Is there any way we could see the drawings? I'm a visual person, so maybe we could just see what Jonathan is indicating. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely. Bear with me while I...
Elevation 2 shows sort of the best example of all of that.
Okay.
Yeah, that one. So yeah, if you're looking at the top of this one, you have that dark brown that's labeled as cedar. That is just all white on the rendering. You have this band of gray, which I assume there's a formatting issue, as opposed to why there's that chunk of it that's out of line with the rest. That's not shown on the rendering. The colors down at the bottom, none of that is on the rendering. It's all just white.
So this was an aspect of the building that was revised partway through, but some of the renderings may not have been updated to reflect revisions that were required. But I think it is fair to say that it should be updated for the website, so we can go back to the applicant and talk to them about that.
Sure. Can I also just get clarification that is a formatting issue with this big white or gray box off to the side as opposed to being in line?
That would be a question for the applicant, as that part is partially recessed. There's a step back, so that color of the building wasn't reviewed, and I'm not sure if that was a design choice or if that was, an accident.
Just to add some context here, the Parsco has added a note to the conversation here, which you might see in the chat. We will review and get back to you. We thought the renders should have focused on the street wall heights and not for the full height of the building. And to Saeed and Parsco, if you're online on phone, we'd be happy to have you speak during the meeting. That might be best. Tom, go to you.
Seems like they might not have the permissions. Like that was what happened to me when I joined. They're not able to actually talk.
Okay, they seem to be able to hear us at least.
I strongly agree with it was my major point of my review of the building, that the confusion it was the most confusion I've come across in any of the presentations. And for a chapter 2 for building design requirements, where the top 1/3 has to change in texture or color or something, if the elevations show it, as Jonathan says, there is no change of elevation. So I'm suggesting, Ted, to move things along, that one of our recommendations is to come back with an improved graphic of actually what is proposed for the building to meet the design building requirements. Because what is presented now is there are 2 presentations, no matter what you say about what should be there. So that's a recommendation that they come back to us with a finalized drawing.
Is that you, Saeed?
Do you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, we have been muted for a long time. I wanted to add something regarding these renders. Just what we have finally proposed for these elevations are exactly shown on the drawings, which the material type would be, and what is the colors for that. But as I mentioned in my recent chat, the renders focus is on the high street wall height, not full height of the building. So that's why we didn't consider, because we didn't consider actually for the full height render. Although we put some extra render there just to clarify what is the shape of the building and what does it look like. But technically, for the for this kind of building, we have been just asked by center plan, just provide some render for the street wall heights. But if something more is required, we would be more than happy to provide you with the further render to show every single detail on the top side of that building.
Thank you.
No problem.
Any further questions right now?
Can I just would like to reiterate, if the renderings don't reflect what's on the elevations, it would be great to see revised renderings. I think it would actually do your group a great service, because my initial impression, especially of the rendering capturing the corner pedestrian connection of Wise Road and Pelzant, was quite underwhelming. And this obviously is an area of redevelopment, and I think there's a huge opportunity to come in as one of the first and do a really great job. And this elevation that we're seeing on the drawings is much better than my initial impression of the renderings. So definitely would encourage you to update them.
Sure.
Jonathan? Sorry, go ahead, Saeed.
Just wanted to say, yeah, sure, we will do that, and we'll update the renders perfectly.
Thank you, Jonathan,
Okay.
and then Christina.
Okay.
Yeah, so can I just clarify then that there's that feature of the gray that comes down through each elevation, but it's different on every side. Is that correct? On the back side on George Street, it's just from top to bottom, it's a gray line through windows and balconies. On the side, I see this sort of off 2-level square. And then on the front, it doesn't go all the way to the top. So is that purposeful, or is it all meant to be like we're showing now in the back?
No, it was intentional, because every single 3D views have independent, perspective. So we have tried to make it, not boring, to everybody who is walking on the street and have a look at this building. That's why the reason we came up with this arrangement for that elevation. That's on purpose,
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you. So I'm only going to refer to the information that I have. My first question is, can you then also clarify what is the landscape that you propose? Because you seem to propose trees and it doesn't seem to be consistent. So we don't know if you can actually have the sort of vegetation that you are referring to. I keep on asking, can you include the neighbors? Because I'm so concerned about the density that all the projects are proposing. So to have the neighbors, it will give us a sense of context, which would allow us to understand this better. And if you could actually understand what is the shadows of these buildings towards the neighborhood buildings, it would be so much appreciated, because it's quite a lot, in my opinion.
This application was required to submit a shadow study, so they've submitted that, and there will be public information as well as a mail-out appeal period that is sent to the surrounding community. I believe the buffer is 100 meters, but I'd have to double check that in the land use bylaw. They will all receive copies of the elevations and have an opportunity to provide an appeal if they wish.
Thank you.
Okay, so my read here is we've got a number of us who didn't get the package. And then a number of us who require a bit greater information on the renderings. And I'm going to conclude here that we don't really have an adequate case here to make an informed vote. And maybe this should be deferred, but I want to know if everybody else is thinking is aligned with that. Sarah?
Yeah, I don't want to kind of beat a dead horse or anything, but I really struggled to make comments or form an opinion on this, just because when I was looking at certain images, it wasn't aligning with the others. And it wasn't just a kind of opinion about these pieces of the development. It was actually within each chapter. So in some circumstances, I could understand why it was approved or why it would move ahead. And then in others, I couldn't. So I think because it's substantive, we do need to do it next meeting if we can.
Thank you. Other people? Tom? Mute?
Yeah, I am glad that it has gone this way, because my main comment was the confusion of the drawings, even down to the landscape drawings, which are not complete. And as I think Christine pointed out, the trees are central to, they're talking about using 150 millimeter diameter trees for shade at the entrance, and there's no information on those. So I would like the plans to be reviewed. I'm kind of wondering, is Parsco on the website is an engineering firm, and I'm wondering, do they have is this an architect or an engineer designed this building? Can you answer that?
A team was working on this project, including architect, structural, and I was leading the team toward this center plan, to get this application done. Yeah, the team was working on that.
Yes. Is there an architect involved? And is?
Oh yeah.
Who is it?
In Parsco.
Yes.
Mohammed and Jamal.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so to move forward, we should have a motion to defer consideration of this case until next meeting. May I have somebody to that, please?
I'll put a motion on to defer till July meeting.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Second by Tom. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? It's unanimous. We vote to postpone. Sorry about that.
Ted, could I just ask a quick question?
Please do, Jesse.
So I guess this is to staff, but if this package was sufficient for the staff review, but not sufficient for our review, because we're trying to review against the design criteria and we didn't have enough information, what can we do to prevent this from happening in the future? Like, why is there a discrepancy between what staff require and what we require?
I can take that one. Sorry, it's Erin McIntyre. I think this is a note for us to be careful with the renderings. I know we get focused very much on the elevation drawings because that has the detail that demonstrates compliance or not with the land use bylaw. So, you know, we need to be a little more mindful. I can appreciate how that could happen on our end. As for the rest of the details that the committee has outlined, we'll hand that to the applicant and ask them to respond. It's really about the details and what's demonstrated on the plans from their perspective.
Good,
Okay.
Jesse?
Yeah, clear. Just wanted to, you know, like avoid this in the future, because that way we don't need to defer things for, you know, when we can avoid it.
But I'll also add,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened with the emails. I looked at the one from last Friday and like everybody's on it. So something happened there. And I think we'll have to do something to make sure that everybody's confirmed as having the design package the full week in advance. That really makes a big difference. And I think I'll also add for the developer, the applicant, when you come forward next time, if you have done public notification between now and then, I would appreciate it if you could give us some sort of information on what your findings were from that, because that's always of great interest to the Design Advisory Committee. Thank you. Tom, go ahead.
I think you've covered it. I'm saying rather than just a recommendation to defer this, I think the recommendation should be that the drawings are complete and are actually what is being proposed to be built at that very important corner in downtown Dartmouth. Rather than just a recommendation to defer, it's a recommendation to produce a proper package of drawings that articulates the issues that we have to cover.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure they'll be reflected in the minutes. Liam is very, very good at providing lots of detail for us and for the applicant. Any further comments before we move on? Hearing none, we're going to go on to case 9.1.2. Sorry, item 9.1.2, case 2349419, level 3 site plan approval for 247 Pleasant Street and 3 to 7 Chadwick Street. Once again, Claire Tews will be presenting on behalf of the city. Representing the applicant is Ramon Solomon of WM Ferris, and he is here to answer any questions or provide clarification as required of the Design Advisory Committee. Having said that, Claire, we're going to hand the floor back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, this might be a little repetitive, but just bear with me. Okay, can everybody see my screen again?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, perfect. All right. Again, my name is Claire Tews. I'm a Planner 1 with Land Development and Subdivision. This presentation is for a site plan approval application for 247 Pleasant Street and 3, 5, and 7 Chadwick Street in Dartmouth. The subject property fronts onto Pleasant Street with a flankage property line on Chadwick Street. There is a medical clinic located immediately beside the subject property. Across the street is North Woodside Community Center and Park. And the residential streets such as Marvin Street, Chadwick Street, and Renfrew Street all have low density residential uses. Here is the subject property zoned corridor in context with the surrounding center plan package A zones.
Claire, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I still see the main is not moving. Your presentation is not moving to me. At least to me, I only see your first slide.
Okay, you know, I've had this problem before. Is this happening for anybody else?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, me as well.
Okay. Let me close it out and restart it. Sorry about that. Okay, do you see the next slide now?
Nope.
Nope.
Still no, okay. Is it still frozen or do you see my desktop background?
It's frozen. Maybe we should stop viewing your screen and then try viewing it again.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try that. Are we seeing anything?
Just your desktop.
Just my desktop. Okay. We know it works because we've done it already once.
I see a slide that says site context.
Okay.
I think that's what you're looking for, right?
That's the one I'm looking for, but if I move it to the next one, do you see the next one?
Still slide 2.
Okay. Jill, you said that you also have a copy of the slideshow. Did you want to try sharing that maybe in all?
Yeah, we'll bring it up here now for you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Okay, so I'll just say next when I'm ready to go to the next one. So next.
Thank you, Claire.
No problem. Okay, so once again, we're fronting on Pleasant Street and flankage property lines are on Chadwick Street. So we can go to the next one. Okay, so there we go. So the medical clinic is right immediately next to these properties. There's North Woodside Community Center Park across the street, as well as the community center. And then on the residential streets, Marvin Street, Chadwick Street, Renfrew Street, it's all low density residential. Arnold Whitworth Park is up the road there. And there are a few other smaller community parks. Go to the next one. So here is the zone. It's corridor zone in context with the other zones, which happen to all be corridor zone in that area. The rest of the properties will be zoned with package B when it comes through. Go to the next one. Okay, so here's a look at the corner of the street from Pleasant Street. So these buildings have already been issued demo permits, and there's a consolidation underway right now. So we can go to the next one. Here's another view from that corner. Go to the next. This is 5 Chadwick, also demo permit in process. And the next one. Sorry, I should say demo permit has been issued. We'll go to the next one. And next. Okay, so this property is zone corridor under the Regional Center Plan land use bylaw. The 4 properties that were formerly there were low density residential use. And as I said, they've been issued demo permits and there's an active consolidation application. So we go to the next one. So this is a look at the proposed building. The proposal is for a 9-story, 61-unit residential building with 2 levels of parking. The proposed building is classified as a mid-rise building under the land use bylaw as it falls within 11 to 20 meters in height. Go to the next one. Next, Jill. So here's the rendering from the corner of Pleasant Street and Chadwick Street. Next. And a look from the side of Chadwick Street. Next. And another look from Chadwick Street. Next. This is the most recent rendering that I received from the applicant. Next. And here's the nighttime rendering. Again, the corner of, oh, I'm sorry, it says George Street at the bottom. It should say Pleasant Street and Chadwick Street. I will have that edited for the website. Okay, next. Okay, so here's a look at the site plan. Again, it's hard to read on the slides, but it'll all be posted online afterwards for further viewing. Next. So this application is classified as a level 3 site plan approval as the proposed floor area is greater than 5,000 square meters. The applicant has successfully completed a pre-application and met all land use bylaw requirements, and in particular, they have demonstrated that the proposal meets the site plan approval requirements of Part 6. Next. So same as the last application, they are required to have a website with information about the proposal, with plans and renderings and contact information for the developer, a sign on all street frontages of the site, which includes the rendering, contact information, and the website address, a public meeting advertised held in accordance with sections 23, 24, 25 of the land use bylaw, and a final report with record of the feedback received from the website, the public meeting, and any other correspondence which may be submitted by the public, and this shall be submitted with their full site plan approval application. So this applicant has the website under construction. The poster is scheduled to be, oh, pardon me, sorry. This application has got their poster and their website ready to go, and they've got their public meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. Okay, next. So Part 6 of the land use bylaw regulates aspects of the development that are subject to site plan approval, and it's based on these criteria that the committee is asked to make a recommendation to the development officer. Again, numbers and brackets are the associated sections of the land use bylaw. So Chapter 2 outlines the requirements for at-grade private open spaces, and this proposal features one small at-grade private open space with access from Chadwick Street. The proposed spaces the proposed space has dimensions greater than 3 meters by 5 meters, and therefore the medium scale design requirements apply. The landscaping plan demonstrates that barrier-free access and permanent seating are provided, and stone pavers and vegetation are proposed as ground cover. The proposed weather protection is deciduous trees with a minimum base caliper of 100 millimeters. We go to the next one. So here's a look at the landscaping plan. I've zoomed in on the at-grade private open space where you can see the bike racks, the permanent bench, and the deciduous trees. We can go to the next one. Did we skip one, Jill? There we go. Okay, so Chapter 3 outlines the building design requirements. So street wall articulation is achieved through changes in colors, materials, which are continued around the sides. The pedestrian entrance is distinguished by weather-protected changes in, is distinguished and weather-protected by changes in colors, materials, and through the use of recesses. The ground floor facade has clear glass glazing between the required 25 to 85%. The weather protection for the multi-unit residential entrance is achieved with a recess. The exposed foundation is clad with materials consistent with the overall design. The building top distinction is accomplished with a change in materials and color greater than 0.5 meters in height. And the rooftop mechanical features are visually integrated into the design of the building and concealed from the public view at the street line. Next. Okay, so this is the proposed front elevation facing Pleasant Street. Go to the next one. Here's the proposed elevation facing Chadwick Street. Next, another look at Chadwick Street as the building wraps around. Next. Go to the next one, Jill. So I just wanted to show the nighttime rendering again, just to show what the street wall will look like. Can we go to the next one? So this is Chadwick Street. So this demonstrates the change in colors, materials, and the recess sorry, the first one was from the recess of the multi-unit residential entrance. Okay, we can go to the next one. So chapter 4, the pedestrian connection from the public street is provided to the at-grade private open space. Motor vehicle parking is internal to the building and its access meets the street wall requirements. It's accessed through Chadwick Street, and the utility features are enclosed within a projection or recess or hidden with opaque screening. We can go to the next one. So this property, oh, I think we went one too far, but this property is not a heritage conservation, it's not a heritage property and it's not located within the Heritage Conservation District. So chapter 5 doesn't apply. And the next slide, chapter 6. The common building entrances, walkways, at-grade private open spaces will be illuminated and the site's not in a view terminus site. Go to the next one. Variation is not requested for this proposal. And next. So the Design Advisory Committee is being asked to make recommendations pertaining to site plan approval design requirements of Part 6 and the land use bylaw as it pertains to the proposed building design for 247 Pleasant Street and 3, 5, and 7 Chadwick Street, Dartmouth. And go to the last slide, which is, do you have any questions for me or the developer? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, Claire, I'm going to open up the floor. We have Ramon from WM Ferries, and we have Claire to answer all the questions that you have. Elizabeth, you're up first.
Hi, so I just wanted to get some clarification here on your presentation on page 16. It's just in plan view, the site plan. It shows that the building along Chadwick Street goes from 5 stories to 6 stories and then back down to 5 stories, I believe. There's also a note sort of in the inside corner of that building that says 3 stories. The elevations and renderings are showing that the building fluctuates from 3 to 4 stories on that road and not 5 to 6. So could we get some clarity on that?
So the front of the building is 8 stories. That's that first number on the left. And then the middle at its highest is 5 stories. And then that second dark gray section that's long and skinny is 6 stories. And the last one is 5 stories. So this is a unique set of properties where they have a 20-meter max height for the front of the building and the back of the building, but the middle is an 11-meter maximum height. So they had to work within those height requirements to meet the land use bylaw.
So if you just flip to one of the elevations there, are you able to sort of guide us through how that to me, that shows 3 to 4 stories and not 5 to 6. Are there underground units?
The label is provided by the applicant. So they may have been counting the underground parking. However, when I do my review, I'm looking at the height. Does the average height meet that height requirement?
Yeah, no, I think they did a great job of articulating the height, especially along Chadwick. This is a great, I think this building is fantastic, to be quite honest. I think it looks great. But I just wanted to clarify that piece, that's all.
Ramon, did you want to speak to that?
So the numbers that are shown on the site plan are just measured from the main entrance at Pleasant Street. So, but there's no units underground. It's just that we can define clearly how many floors. The entire height of the building is 8 floors. So this way, when you're looking at it from the site plan, when you're comparing the 8 floors next to the 5 floors next to it, you know that the buildings have dropped 2 floors. But if you look at it from, if you're referring it from the street, yes, the middle portion is only going up 3 floors, and the portion facing Pleasant Street is the portion that goes up 8 floors.
I see. So you're just basically keeping the rear of the building at the same height of the 5 stories at, say, the main road there. I see. Okay, I get it. I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Further questions? Go ahead, Tom. You're on mute.
Yeah, I just made a comment in my notes that they are beautiful isometric drawings, and congratulations. They are the drawing Ask 7, for instance, is very good in comparison to what we had seen beforehand, or what I had seen beforehand. Is one elevator sufficient for 61 units? A question. Is that okay for the city? One elevator for 61 units?
Sorry, Claire, if you're gonna speak,
Building code.
Yeah, the number of elevators is not regulated under the land use bylaw.
Okay.
Neither the National Building Code.
Is it regulated by the city? Is it
No, it's
regulated
not.
by the city?
No, it's not governed by any bylaws or building codes. It's purely convenience, and we usually a rule of thumb for us, like anything. Well, I'm hearing a lot of echo here.
Yes, you get. I can't hear what you said. You're getting a lot of. No.
Ramon, you do have a fair bit of static. Ramon, well, let's get the floor to Ramon to just finish up.
Okay, I'll say again. So the elevators are not governed by any bylaws or codes. But however, us as designers, we tend to anything less than 60, we recommend one elevator. Anything more than 60, we recommend 2 elevators. In this instance, the developer decided to go with 1 elevator. Also, given the depth of the building, it would have, and the fact that we have that half of the building is high and the other half is low, we saw that 1 elevator would be sufficient.
Okay, I know I may be taking away Jonathan's steam here, so apologies, Jonathan. But the building is lovely, but it, as per the design building requirements, the top 1/3 definition, whether it is half a meter or the whole top third, is not very strong, Ramon. I think there's a lot of the elevations where you cannot see the difference in, you call it a medium cement board or a light cement board, and it would be a fine building if you really articulated the top band, so we knew where I think the land use bylaw is trying to show that the building is finished. It just doesn't stop at a floor. So I could not see a very strong band of differentiation in color on the top third in any of the elevations.
Well, our design intent was to take the entire top third of the building to be differentiated from the rest of the building. That's why we can see clear differentiation between the top 3 floors and the rest of the building. It's in terms of recess and material and window sizes. However, it's a bit of an unclear area where whether actually the top third of the building would need to be differentiated or the portion of the top third, which that's why we added this variation in color up top, just to meet that requirement. However, like this, the rendering right now we're showing it white, and that's the intent. When usually it comes to the developer, when it comes to shopping around for materials, this is when they can propose a material that has a good variation of colors, and this is when we start to mix. Right now we're just showing different 2 tones of gray. Then we can show something different, like with 3 shades of gray or so.
Well, I think, in all fairness to us, we make our recommendations based on what is presented, and I find, it was a very, very minimal change. You'd have to squint hard to see the change in the building colors. If you say you go out further and shop for something different, I think we have to approve it on the fact that you are proposing quite a distinct band for the top 1/3 of the building. Does the rest of the team agree, or am I being picky?
Mr. Chair, if I may interject, I'm sorry to interrupt. I wonder if it's a question of clarification or if we're starting to wander over into recommendation to the development officer's territory.
I think this is, Tom's still asking for questions, clarification. When it comes down to whether we're going to make a recommendation in the motion, that'll be after we put the motion on the floor. Does that answer your question?
Well, it
Certainly,
answers mine.
certainly, yes.
That would be.
Aaron, go ahead.
Sorry.
Then Tom. Aaron?
Sorry. No, I just making a casual observation, and maybe it's not my place, Mr. Chair. I'm just noting that maybe the last point by Tom would be better made to the development officer than a point of clarification to the applicant, but I could be wrong.
I'm not even sure. So I mean, I just say, well, we'll put something into the recommendations, and then it'll be up for the developer and the development officer to sort out. But Tom will come up with something good.
But the development officer has approved this based on the renditions and elevations presented. So we, as a member of the committee, anyway, are saying, well, it's not clear to me. So I would not make the recommendation to the development officer. I would make the recommendation in the minutes of our meeting here that the 1/3 of the building should be quite distinct as per Chapter 2 building design requirements. Okay, Ted, just leave.
Oh, I get it now. So you're saying that you don't think it meets the criteria?
No, it doesn't.
Then okay.
I'm able to provide some background on this requirement. So initially, the applicant had proposed that the entirety of the top third was differentiated with the color white and a change in materials. However, the bylaw states that it's a portion of the top third, so it couldn't just be the entire top third of the building. It has to be a differentiation within that top third. So we requested revisions back to Ramon, and this is what he provided was we're going to do a two-tone gray for the top third to show that portion of the top third. And that was purely based on the language of how that section is written. It was an interpretation that we made. So I don't know if that helps you, Tom, at all.
That's what we're here for. Is we're supposed to also interpret these criteria and make our own conclusion if we think if it meets or not. So Tom's saying right now he doesn't think it meets. Development officer so far is saying they think it does. Well, it'll come down to the vote, right?
Do bear in mind, Ramon has just said that at this time they have just used 2 tones of grey, and he is going to go out shopping and get a different tone. So that's all we have to do is in the recommendation and said it should be a little more distinct than 2 tones of grey. If you look at the elevations, it's hard to discern. The building just soars into the sky without any distinct termination. And I think that is the point of the land use bylaw at 1/3 top of the building. However, I don't hear any comment from Jonathan, and he's always into materials.
I was just waiting for you to finish. But no, I do agree on that. And I'd be okay making a recommendation once we get to that the top just all be one color, all be white. I think that provides the intent of the bylaw.
Further questions?
May I continue, and then I have another suggestion that relates directly to the land use bylaw. There is a suggestion that the trees, deciduous trees with 100mm caliber at the entrance, it's section 116 of chapter 2, provide shading or shelter for the entrance ways. Those are not included in the landscaping site plan or in any of the renditions. So I would like to see those trees there. I also wonder at Chadwick Street on the bylaw, it says the public space, if it is less than, more than 2.5 meters, it should have a street tree or bushes or something to provide privacy. When you're going up Chadwick Street, all those sodded areas are much longer than 2.5 meters. And I would really like to see, it's a beautiful street, Pleasant Street. It's a very, very beautiful street. Maybe not there, but it is further in. And I'd like to see a whole whack of street trees planted in those gardens, those sodded, plain, boring gardens going up Chadwick Street. I think one tree in each garden, and it also meets the requirements of the land use bylaw. I can't remember what place it is, but it's where where spaces are greater than 2.5 meters. There should be a street tree or bushes for privacy. So I'd like to see that. That's going to be one of my recommendations. I'd also like to recommend street tree planting as per the municipal design guidelines for Pleasant Street, to keep on the tradition of street trees in Pleasant Street. And there is a boulevard there, and I think it could be a contribution from the developer to Pleasant Street. So that's, and also a small thing, there's a pathway that runs from Pleasant Street along the north side of the building to an entrance way at the level 3 parking, I think. Is it illuminated? There was no sign on that there was lighting. It's I think it's in between the building and a retaining wall. It needs to be lighted. Anyway, that's it. That's my comments. Pass on.
Maybe Claire can respond about the lighting. Claire Ramon, please.
Yeah, the lighting, everything should be illuminated. I'll maybe leave that one to Ramon, but your first comment, Tom, was on section 116, the requirements for at-grade private open spaces medium scale, but, and I think you were referencing the front of the building on Pleasant Street at first. Is that correct?
No, I'm referencing the Chadwick Street. Going up
Chadwick
the slope. Yeah.
Okay, so the at-grade private open space is just along the back side of the building on that side yard. It's not within the private front yards for the at-grade, the grade-related units. But is that where you're referring to?
Well, if you're going to follow by the letter of the law, I think the properties going up Chadwick Street are also fronting. They are an important visual element as the entrance to that street, and I think we could. Well, I'm going to recommend to the committee that we recommend a tree, a significant tree in each of those small gardens to articulate the broken facade of the building.
Okay, I think the section is 119, but I think the section is 119, but these spaces were less than 2.5 meters deep, so the requirement didn't apply.
No, they're well over 2.5 meters deep.
The property line is
according to the scale of the drawings, anyway.
The property, if you look at the site plan, if allow me to speak, the property line is not at the curb. That expanses of sod, this is all right of way outside of the property. I can't agree more with you. I would love to add more vegetation in these sodded areas, but this is all outside of the property. That's why we couldn't add anything in it. So that if you look at the site plan, the property line, the face of the building is 1.5 meters from the property line on Chadwick Street and Pleasant.
Again, Ramon, I think I would suggest and will recommend to the committee that we recommend the developer plant trees as a gift to the city then, because you are putting sod on city property, so you can put a tree as well as a gift to the city.
Sure. The city allows it, right? We'd have to go through them.
Pardon?
presumably. I mean, the city would have to allow that because their property. I think that's worth bringing up when we bring this on the floor about the recommendation, the exact wording, Tom.
The city have a municipal design guideline that encourages developers to plant street trees, whether on their property or on the city property. So this is just a recommendation from this committee. I couldn't find anything else for the building. It was a lovely building, it was fine. So I had to do some street tree planting.
Thank you. Jesse, go ahead.
Okay, sure. I have I think clarification or question for the applicant, and then maybe one for the city as well, depending. In the at-grade private open space, I see on the drawing that there's a bench. Is there just one bench on that whole long open space?
Yes.
Okay. Then question to the city, like I know that one piece of seating meets the bylaw, so I'm not arguing that it meets, I think it meets. There's no definition around like what we call seating or like how much seating there should be provided. Like I'm just thinking this is a really big building with lots of units and we have like one bench only.
I can do,
Darren.
yeah,
Sorry.
I'll just do a quick look through the bylaw and see what the definition is to be sure.
Okay, and then I guess another point of clarification. So same for the weather protection. So there's the deciduous tree that's 100 millimeters in diameter as the weather protection. Again, just that one tree.
Hi, we'll have Claire confirm, but sorry, go ahead, Ramon.
This is something that we are going to revise with the landscape architect because, yeah, as Tom said, that was shown in landscaping drawings is not really defining that it's 100 millimeter. So, but the bylaws require only one. But however, we showed all of them to be 100 millimeter, and like that's our discussion with the landscape architect. But they didn't end up showing this on the site plan. So this is something that will be revised on the landscaping drawings.
Okay, so
that's our intent.
Just to confirm, there'll be more. So there'll be more than one tree in the at-grade private open space, and that those trees will all be large enough to provide weather protection.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I think we can discuss it at recommendation time. But another thing that I look for in these drawings, and maybe correct me if this isn't there, but I think it's great where possible to pair the seating with the weather protection. And like sometimes you can't do that when it's like a recessed door or something that's providing the weather protection, but where there are trees and a bench, I think it's nice if you compare those things again, like giving people the option to sit whilst being protected from the weather is nice. Yep. So I think that's something to take into consideration. And then I just had one more question about the green roof. Is that just sod?
Just double check the landscaping drawings.
It says sodding or like soft cover, but I just wanted to.
Jesse, I didn't see a definition of permanent seating or seating in the back of the bylaw, but that's usually where I look when I'm doing my review.
Okay.
It will be a mix of sod and portable planters.
Okay, so yeah, again, like at recommendation time, I think we often make this recommendation, but sedum as a better choice than sod. So we can discuss that then.
Okay.
Cool, that's all for me.
Christina.
Hi, thank you. So maybe I would start with some overall things from the outside. Probably is I'm really concerned about the height of the building facing north. Is really very tall. I mean, you've been very sensitive to the street, Ramon, but in fact, the north facade is really facing the neighbor in a very abrupt way. So I'm considering what is to dwell is if you buy the plot at the north side, what is to be there with such a high and tall wall, and how do you see that? The second thing that I'm considering is I'm moving out to the interior and then I can go to the exterior, but it's quite an exercise. That ramp going down to the parking, I think, is very, very steep, but what can we say about that? As long as if you make it work, I think it's possible. But then my question is, there is a moment where I don't think you can park a car. So I'm talking specifically on the level, let me find it, because is when you have the lot slightly cutted. So is your level 1, you actually enter the floor. So is your drawing ASK2, and you have 3 parking plots that I don't see how can you park with that curvature. So I don't think with that width you can actually park the car, but let us know about that. I understand that 1 elevator is sufficient according to the promoters, but you are designing for families. You are providing, in my opinion, very long corridors. And so the possibility to have at least elevators into extreme points could be very beneficial to the families. And if there is 1 elevator that doesn't work, you have people from the upper floor which have problems by circulating. So that is one of the things. Another thing is, of course, the passage on the north side. Yes, is illuminated, you mentioned to us, but actually you have balconies almost touching the retained wall. You have windows facing that retained wall up to the 2nd floor, I think. And what is to dwell in front of that is quite something to be understood. Is also that small passage that you have is for a specific situation, which is, I presume, an emergency exit. But so how is that passage, and how do you feel that a lot of dwellings are facing that retained wall? Another thing is not clear how tall is that retained wall to the neighbor. Is nothing in your drawings except in your elevation, but doesn't show how tall it is. So a few questions about that. Regarding the facade materials, well, I mean, it's quite a trend nowadays to see different materials. I understand that, but I would say that materials in the facade should be there to qualify and to send a message. In your case, you want to define the materiality as proper volumes to fragment a huge volume, because it's quite a big building, considering the neighborhood. And so you are saying, okay, I'm providing more vertical elements that can fragment that huge mass that I'm proposing. But the story is not consistent, because I can't tell the story of all the materials that you're using, and how do they provide a better understanding of the building. So I don't know if you need that many materials. So the recommendation of my colleagues to make them simple and making on the top floor just 1 color would be helpful. I also recommend about the relationship with the street. And again, if the landscape can provide some quality of the street, especially with such a massive building that you guys are proposing, and locating trees, it could be very helpful, in my opinion. Thank you. I know I might be too fast. Sorry.
Thank you, Christina. Ramon?
Thanks, Christina. So let's start first with just clarifying one thing. The north site is currently a clinic that is owned by the same developer. We took advantage of the land use bylaw, which allows, right, typically on the street, it's required to set back, but we're allowed up to 20% and not set back. And we chose to put it against that clinic site specifically because it has such a large open space, which is a parking in front of the site. so it's not encroaching against residential on the neighboring site. So that's where we saw it would be appropriate to make use of this long, tall wall. The land use bylaw does not recommend any setbacks from all the other property lines, except at the top of Chadwick Street on the right of the site. This is where we had that 6 meter setback, and that's because this area is going to be zoned residential, low density residential. However, the north of the site, this area is all going to be zoned high density residential. So it's either going to be the clinic, or in the future, if any other building comes up, is going to be something in the same scale. As of the ramp, I just wasn't sure if you're referring to on the outside or the inside of the
Inside.
Yeah. So could you tell me like what drawing again, because I missed that?
No, what I'm trying to say is not really, it's just it's quite a steep ramp, right? You can make it, but it's not easy to go down that ramp, and we both know it. So you are pushing to the limits. What can I say? It's a matter of design, and you are using your best benefit, but the parking space doesn't work. I'm sorry to say. Those parking spaces, you cannot put a car there. You know which one I'm telling you about? You designed them, but I command you to put your car there. So is drawing is level 1, and drawing ASK2, and so the parking spaces that I'm talking about is number 4, number 5, number 6. If it's a small car, you can make it. You see what I'm saying? Because you cut the space, so it's impossible to park there, especially on that edge corner. Number 4 is not a parking space, right? So just to let you know, we both know that, right? Yeah, okay. Sorry.
So I just want to confirm that, just give me a second. Claire, do you recall if there's any required parking?
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Ramon?
No, there is no required parking for this building.
So there's no required parking. We try to make as much use as possible. Now, if this doesn't work, well, then it's either going to be like, we'll put a sign on it, this is just a parking spot for a small car, or the developer could end up deciding not to use these spots for parking. So we're just trying to make as much use as possible of the parking space of this parking lot. However, it is not a requirement in the land use bylaw to have, and if there was, then I have to abide by certain parking spot dimensions. So we are providing what could possibly be done here for convenience only.
Okay,
but I agree with you. They are smaller than,
yes, okay. My recommendation is there. It's just because you draw it as any other parking. I'm just letting you know it can't be, right? It's just that. I don't know if you want to talk about the north side and the balconies almost touching the retaining wall. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so again, in order to get the proper depth for these units facing the north elevation, we had to push the face of the building as close as possible to the property line. Obviously, what I left there is enough space to meet the building, the National Building Code for allowable openings. The closer I get to the property line, the smaller the windows are going to be. So we left, I think it was around 5 meters in this back area, or 3 meters. This is just enough to get decent sized windows on this elevation. And the fact that it's facing that clinic, we felt that this is not too intrusive to neighboring sites. It's almost facing a parking lot. But yes, the retaining wall at the bottom, these balconies are facing a retaining wall, we had no choice as well to do, like either we can take the balconies altogether, but then these units would not have a balcony. So it is just the fact of trying to accommodate the thickness of the building and having deep units to work and try and meet the minimum opening requirements from the property line. That walkway at the back, it is, yeah, as you said, it is a connection, it's an exit path in the back, and it will be illuminated. Did I miss any more questions? You mentioned a couple more.
No, I don't think you did. Thank you for your attention. I just would like to ask you a little bit on the rooftop where you have green areas. You're talking about amenities, but and I can see, yes, some green spaces, but is there anything, is there going to be a canopy? How do you imagine people to use this space? Because I presume you letting this to be used by the residents, right?
Yes.
Okay, is there any ideas? You imagined something how people could use this space?
Right now, we're just in this application, I'm trying to meet the land use bylaw. Once this is, yeah, either going to improve on that or do it as is. This is something typically like when we reach, when we're starting to bid on this job and we get a landscaper contractor, this is when we see our options and see what's the budget of the client can afford. And if we can improve on what's shown right now, we definitely will. But currently, we're just showing what's just enough to meet the land use bylaw at this stage.
Thank you, Ramon. You've been very nice to answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for your questions, Christina. Any further questions? Jonathan?
Yeah, so just to clarify for that rooftop, it's I think level 6 is accessible and the one on the top of the 8th floor is not, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to say that the building is really nice. I love the massing and the way you've tried to blend it in with its surroundings and such, and the quality of the package compared to the last one again is, this is the type of stuff that makes it really easy for us to look at. I did have some slight concern, same as Christina, about that north wall. So just to make sure, there's a couple of entrances that are down there. Those are just safety entrances off of common areas. They aren't actual residential entrances.
No.
No. Okay.
Well, there is one residential. It's not an entrance. It's just a patio door.
Okay. Down in the dungeon area. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, yeah.
someone will want it, I'm sure. Some student.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. My other thing I think is just about that wall in general. I think it's rather sort of big and imposing. And maybe you can just talk about it. I know there was a previous iteration of this development. I don't know if you guys have worked on it or not, and it had this sort of jagged edge with balconies and windows that all faced out towards the street. If there was any thought of pulling that into this type of development as well.
Well, we have seen, we didn't design this shape. However, we started from scratch using the land use bylaw, and you can see how the limitations and the law, the rules of the land use bylaw. It will be very hard to accommodate one shape into a different bylaw. So we started from scratch.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's all I had.
Thank you. Further questions? Hearing none.
May I have just, yeah, the drawing, this is again the north side of the building. Drawing the north elevation 1, drawing D17. There is a black finish between the 3rd and the 4th floor. It's just a question. I'm not. What is that, Ramon? Why that big black? You call it a vertical corrugated metal black. What is that meant to be? Or will that be facing? Will that be facing the houses on the next street? Thank you.
Are you able to go to sheet D20 because it's more a 3D and maybe I can understand better what portion of the building you're referring to? D20.
North. Well, I think that drawing that Ted has is D17.
Talking about this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you referring to that wall at the bottom
Yes.
left?
Yes.
Yeah, so we're showing two tones of corrugated metal. One will be a light gray and one will be a dark gray. So this bottom left wall is a vertical corrugated corrugated metal dark gray color.
Is it the parking that is behind that?
Yes, there is parking floors behind that. Yeah.
And will that be facing the gardens and the properties on the other street going northwards? Yes. I don't know what's called Renfrew.
Yes.
And does the bylaw not request that cladding for parking is integrated into the building above it and not?
No, it only talks about the street wall and then returns from the street wall on the side lots.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And thank you, everybody, for all your questions. We can move on.
Sorry,
Christina.
just one more. Sorry. I think my question is regarding the street elevation facing, for example, street wall height requirements. I can see that you do some landscape adjustments to actually allow people to enter some of the points of some entry points, and I see there is quite what is that? Some drops, some huge drops, and I don't see any handrails or anything. Is there any security protection in these situations? You can see that a lot in your renders, but in those situations, do you have any protection?
So once we get more into details,
Yeah.
I tend not to like to add handrails in landscaping because it kind of ruins all the landscaping. So in other hands, I use the landscaping as a handrail. So once we get into, again, when we fully develop our drawings, we will have zoomed in plans for each entryway, and we would incorporate the landscaping on the perimeter of the porch. So right now we're showing bushes, and these bushes would act as your guardrail. In other ways, it prevents you from going to the edge and having the drops, then you don't require the handrail. So we're using landscaping as a guardrail or something to prevent you from needing a guardrail.
Okay, but that's quite important because this is a security matter, right? So
yeah, we wouldn't get occupancy on the project if I had this on. But this is more preliminary, so we're just showing that landscaping.
Okay.
Once we get to the details of like the final set of drawings, we have to make this work with the National Building Code.
Thank you.
Yeah, I suggest that the National Building Code for site development covers all the requirements for handrails and slopes and accessibility. So it's well covered in the building code.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to the discussion, can I get a motion to put the motion on the floor, please?
I'll put it on the floor that the Design Review Committee recommend approval of level 3 site plan approval application for 247 Pleasant Street and 3 to 7 Chadwick Street, Dartmouth, Nova Scotia.
Seconder?
It's Nancy here. I'll second that.
Okay, and that should be the Design Advisory Committee, not the Design Review Committee.
Sorry.
For Liam taking the minutes. Okay, we'll open up the floor. I heard a whole bunch of good recommendations that could be added to this. Maybe we'll go through them one by one. Who wants to start it? And maybe Liam, you can bring up your computer with the motion so we can add to it.
I can start with mine since I think they're pretty quick. I guess they
Please
never
do.
actually end up being quick, but I would make one that suggests that the green roof is sedum, not sod.
Hold on one second. Can somebody share their screen with the motion?
Says Liam is co-host now, so he probably will.
He's frantically doing something probably right now. Either Liam or Jill. We are all muted. Well, I'll try. Host disabled participant. Okay. So Jill, who is the host, has disabled screen sharing. We're a little bit stuck here. I'm going to start writing by hand. Jesse, go ahead.
Okay, I could put it in the chat. We could put it in the chat too, because then they could copy and paste it.
Great idea.
Yeah, so one recommendation that the green roof use sedum instead of sod. I think that should be clear. And we can merge it with other, if there are other recommendations about the roof area, then we can amend that. And then a second one that I am proposing is that we add additional permanent seating and additional weather protection in the at-grade open space, given the size of the building, so something like that. Or given the number of units, additional permanent seating and additional weather protection should be provided. And then if possible, pairing the weather protection with the seating.
And whenever possible, weather protection be aligned with the seating, did you say?
Paired, yeah.
Paired with the seating. Am I on the right track?
Yep.
Okay. I'll ask the other people if you can come up with your own wording. And right now we're on our own. Something's happened with the municipal staffers, but you've got me. So we're good to go.
All we need, Ted.
How about you, Jonathan or Tom?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll write it here, but it's that thing that Tom was talking about, the top massing of the building facing the corner should all be a unified color. But yeah, I can write it if you want.
Just so you know, Liam is listening. There's some issue with the sharing, and but he's on top of this. Just so I'm clear, when you talk about the top massing, we're talking about this. Is that right?
Right. So
The
yeah,
top
it's
massing.
that, and not including that vertical band that's just facing Pleasant Street on the corner. I think that should be its own thing as it is. I'm just talking about those two facades there.
All right, because they have white all the way up, and then they have gray for the top two floors.
Right.
I think that was the top third, and we're saying no. Don't. What are we suggesting exactly?
That it's all, that those top three floors are all one unified color,
Then
whether
how do you
it's gray or
differentiate-
white. Yeah.
We got to differentiate the top somehow. Is there a band on top?
Yeah, but if they use the top 3 floors, I think that is the full top third, and the requirement that is that it is a portion of the top third. So it was requested that the applicant revise so that the 3 floors weren't one color, that there was an actual distinction. Because if you just make the whole thing one color, then there's no distinction within that top third, right? If everything's one color, then there's no distinction.
Right. I think it's an argument of intent versus reality here, because I think, carrying out the intent does show that. So is there a way for us to get around that? Because I think I think like Tom was saying, it makes no sense to just have one level that's different. It looks funny.
Go to
As long as the
Sarah,
applicant,
please.
Can I say that?
No, hold on.
if you can-
Sarah's got a few comments, and then Claire, and then Tom.
Okay, I mean, I think Tom was answering directly to that, but I'm happy to as well. My interpretation was the top 3 floors, some of the top 3 floors, but it need not be, what am I trying to say? The fact that it's differentiated across the top third is fine. Does that make sense? So if you hold up that picture again, Ted, that white space is not the top 3 floors. Oh, we're sharing something. Is not the top 3 floors across the entire mass of the structure. So it is part of the top third. Does that make sense?
with what they have proposed with the white and the gray, that meets the requirements of the land use bylaw. If it were all white or all gray, it would not meet the requirements of the land use bylaw. So
why is that though, Claire? Because it's not white on the top third around the entire band of the building.
Because the entirety of the top third can't be differentiated. It's a portion. The wording from the bylaw is
Section 132.
Yep, subject subsection 132, a portion of the top third of a building shall be differentiated from the lower portions. And they've done an illustration of the upper third. So it needs to be a portion of that top third. So I think the top 3 floors make up that top third. And that's why they can't all be one unified color.
So I disagree with your interpretation, and I consider a portion of the top third where some of it is white and some of it is the other material beside it. I would consider that appropriate.
Like a vertical differentiation.
But that's not specified.
I think it's
So,
to have
I guess
a
we could
top
just
to the
have-
building. Go ahead, Sean.
We could just have a recommendation from the committee on it. This is our best view of what we think it meets the bylaw. If you disagree, that's fine.
Yeah.
We'll just take the recommendation under advisement and discuss it with the developer moving forward.
Just if we say it doesn't meet the requirement, then this thing can't go forward.
No, I
No,
think
we-
That's actually
we
not
believe-
entirely,
we-
yeah, that's not entirely true, because
No.
ultimately it's Sean's decision, and one that he would have to defend ultimately with the province at the UARB, right?
Yeah, we believe it meets the requirements. It's okay if you disagree with that, but that's how we're proceeding with the application.
So I think, and I don't want to speak for Jonathan, but in my interpretation, if it was all white, it would also meet the requirement, because there's nothing specifying that it has to be a vertical differential.
It's a design requirement, and so it's entirely on the table for the committee to make that recommendation.
I think the committee should discuss what you want to have there, what the recommendation is, and we'll put it into the motion, and then we can go forward.
It's not our job to be the designers. I think this recommendation should be that according to section 132, we are looking for better articulation to show the termination of the building. That's all we are not here to design it. We're asking for better articulation of what is required under section 132. But Ramon himself has said, in this illustration, it's just 2 shades of gray, and he is going to look for a material which will be different for a portion of the top 1/3. So so our recommendation just has to be the architect should better articulate the top of the building as per section 132. That's what I'm recommending, and let the designers come up with it.
What does everyone else say? I'll say this is an opportunity to make a prescriptive recommendation, if you wish.
I think it is a better articulation on the use of the facade materials, in my opinion.
I would suggest that we should specify what we think they should put in. You don't have to, but otherwise they can interpret it any way they wish. And if you don't want to be more specific, we can just do exactly what Tom said. And I just want to make sure everybody's fully informed before we go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's important to not be too prescriptive because again, we're not the designers. But I also want to make sure that it's clear that it's only for that portion that portion of the massing, because there's also the north wall that we were talking about, the largest one. That one is a different material, as well as the slight projection facing Pleasant Street. And that's fine. We're talking about just this other part. And so that's another way of interpreting it as well, is it's a portion, because the stuff on the north is different than what's facing the other directions.
Okay, are you satisfied with what Liam has written there? I'll go to Christina and Tom and Jonathan.
Sorry, just to clarify, it should be that the top 3 floors of that massing. Yeah.
Okay, sounds like we have something good. What else? Tom, you had something about planting more trees on Chadwick.
I have 2. I think that the external lighting plan should include illumination for the pathway along the north of the building. And the next one is, as per the municipal design guidelines, we recommend street trees planting on Pleasant Street. Sorry, along the boulevard of Pleasant Street. And boulevard Pleasant Street, and in the private open spaces along Chadwick Street. And the landscape plan to show the large diameter deciduous tree, which is to provide shelter for the entrance, as per, what is it, Claire, 119?
But that section shouldn't apply to these areas, as I believe they're only 1.7 meters deep.
No, it's the, isn't shelter for the main entrance provided by a recessed door, and it says on the proposal from the developer, and you're writing that shelter is provided by a large caliber deciduous tree at the entrance to the building. So it's not, and that's not shown in the plan.
Okay, so that's section 130. Yeah, not 119.
At the entrance. That's it. Okay. Thank you, Ted.
And thank you, Tom. Liam, you'll notice in the chat, there's a few other, Christina wrote her recommendations in. And so did Nancy.
Sorry, I might just add, trees are not a requirement of section 130. It's just canopies, awnings, recessed entrances, or cantilevers are the 4 options given.
Tom, if that's the case, then we can't say per section 130. You might say in addition to the requirements of section 130, unless there's some other alternative someone can think of.
It is difficult for us not involved in this to keep all of the requirements immediately to hand. But anyway, whatever it is, I think that it's in there, that it's covered there. That's fine.
Okay, so while Liam is
Yeah.
writing all of this in, is there anybody else out there who has some comments that they intend on adding?
I think there is probably an extra recommendation that I didn't mention previously, but I'm quite concerned with those balconies facing the retaining wall. I'm wondering if we should recommend on those circumstances there should not be balconies. So while there exists a retaining wall, maybe there should not be a balcony, because how uncomfortable it is to have a situation where you go outside and you are against the wall and you are touching the wall. There is a small gap there. I'm not sure if it works. So I would recommend to take out those balconies.
Christina, would that be all the balconies all the way up, or just for the first couple of floors?
Just couple of floors while you have the retaining wall.
Okay. Liam's catching up to us, so we'll make sure that one's added. Anyone else? Okay, so we're coming to the close. We'll just wait here.
Christina, is there anywhere on the drawings where they show the height of that retaining wall further up into the building? I know at the parking lot at the health center it's very low, but as you move northwards, does it become quite high? It's hard to tell. It's not shown anywhere on the drawing.
It shows on the elevations, but again, elevations are not the best drawing to represent that, and in the perspectives. But actually, on the plans is not clear how tall it is. So I would like to know. That was one of the questions. How tall is that retaining wall?
It is showing on the 3D. It's not been designed. Since this is usually something that gets designed even during excavation, because actually during excavation we might not need to go as high, especially that the owner of the lot, the north lot, is the same owner. So he is willing to excavate in his site in order to accommodate a shorter wall. Usually but I have to propose something that separates the two sites together, and right now we're showing it goes up almost halfway to the second floor. But I don't have a drawing where it shows the height of the wall.
That should be the first 2 or 3 floors.
I think it is
And
almost
bracket
2
up to the top of the
floors.
retaining wall.
Yeah.
Say,
Can I ask something? I understand that is
the
quite
top of the retaining wall.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think it's quite nice that you are the owner of the next door lot, but in fact, it's possible to sell them because they are different properties. So you are using a lot of arguments that it might be helpful because it's the same owner, but in fact, I don't think that's the best argument, Ramon, because you can sell the next door property in a month without, building anything, and you will leave the next person who buys it with that situation of that tall building facing the property. So it's a matter of, understanding that whatever you leave there, you're going to live for generations, and that worries me. to tell you the truth. That's all.
We're designing this knowing that the neighboring sites are going to be carrying the same zoning. So if any future sites that will come up is going to be within the same density and same height. So we don't see that what we propose here is going to be encroaching or too high to and next to like a low density residential area. And that's what the bylaw is doing. Like if this site was neighboring a low density residential area, our requirement would have been made that I would have to set back certain heights and I can't go that high. So we are using the land use bylaw and we see that the land use bylaw has been written properly to match the neighboring sites.
I understand that, and you're doing your job, and I commend you for that. But in fact, the next door neighbor can build as tall as you, and probably the two neighbors can shake hands in the future. Who knows? That could be great. It's like old Rome. Yeah, but you see, that's the problem, is that what is the legacy that we as architects leave for the future? Because the neighbors can do exactly what you did, is 1 meter against the property line, and they can build 7 floors. And then you have neighbors shaking their hands in their balconies. So welcome to old Rome. That's what you have.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your point is valid, absolutely.
Liam, thank you. I think there's something that's not quite right there. What's it provide here? That the landscape plan to show the large deciduous tree at the entrance to the building. We're satisfied with that wording? Yes, okay. This looks fine to me. I think it captures our discussion. Does somebody want to go ahead and make a motion to amend the motion on the floor as follows?
Can I just make, sorry, can I just make a point first? I don't quite see the point of having things like the handrails on here, because those are all part of the building codes. Those have to be there. I don't know if those, do those fall within our mandate? Maybe that's a question for staff. And same with clarifying the height of their retaining wall. Sure, it's great to know, but what does that achieve? Like, it's not going to come back to us and they're going to tell us and then we'll make another recommendation. This is the one and only time. So I don't understand what the point of those 2 specific ones are.
Hi, it's Erin. I appreciate your point, Jonathan. I think you're right. Those things are probably regulated by other legislation outside the land use bylaw, but it doesn't hurt to include them. You know, we've talked about that before, that if it's not something that the development officer can, you know, compel any sort of consideration on, it sure doesn't hurt to include it. So you're welcome to keep it in if you like.
All right, thanks, Erin.
Okay. Tom, go ahead with the motion to amend.
I move that the motion moved by Jonathan is amended with the considerations as outlined in yellow on our computer screens.
You have to read it though.
Do I have to read it? To use sedum instead of sod for the green roof, to provide additional permanent seeding and weather protection be provided, and whenever possible, the protection should be paired with the seeding, that the top 3 floors of the massing above the corner of Pleasant and Chadwick Streets be unified with 1 material color. External lighting plan to include illumination for the pathway along the north of the building. As per the municipal design guidelines, we recommend the planting of trees along the boulevard of Pleasant Street and along the private open spaces along Chadwick Street. That the landscape plan is to show the large deciduous tree at the entrance to the building. revise the number of proposed parking spaces, clarify the height of the retaining wall on the north facade, provide handrails on the entry porches, and include trees on the sidewalk to maintain the characteristic of the street. That's the same comment that should be up there with and provide the open spaces along Chadwick Street. Liam, can you move that up?
I
to
agree.
there? Include the trees on the sidewalk to maintain the characteristic of the street. Move it in there. Move it to the end of
I'm wondering if we need that phrase. It was myself who proposed it, but I think the previous one is pretty good. Do you think we need the two?
Well, there was a mention of how pleasant Street is, and we're just trying to maintain that. So I think it's good to, but we just reword it as per follow. And along the private open spaces of Chadwick Street to maintain the characteristics of this street. What about that?
Yeah.
Can you do that, Liam?
I like it. I like it.
Revise the number of proposed parking spaces, clarify the height of the retaining wall on the north facade, provide handrails on the entry porches, recheck the turn radius on the parking spots, and eliminate or repurpose any that do not meet the requirement. And remove the balconies on the first 2 or 3 floors up to the top of the retaining wall.
So
do I have a seconder?
I think
no limit. Revise the number of proposed parking spaces is the same as turn the radius of the parking spots. So
yeah,
those two are the same.
Yeah, so
Or
cut
deal
the
with-
revised number. Yes, definitely, because the other one is better. Definitely. Thank you.
And clarify the height of the retaining wall on the north facade is linked to removing the balconies on the first 2 or 3 floors. So those two are essentially the same idea. So until we have clarified the height of the retaining wall on the north facade, we recommend the removal of balconies from the first 2 or 3 floors. Would that do that job? Can you do that, Liam? Until we can clarify the height of the retaining wall on the north facade.
I'm sorry, Tom, but I don't know if I agree, because that might say, as the moment you clarify, you do not have to remove the balconies, but I think the problem is the balconies which are at the height or below the top of the retaining wall. That is the problem. So above that, the balconies are fine, but below the height of that retaining wall, they should be subtracted, in my opinion. Remove the balconies up to the top of the retaining wall. I think so. I think that is enough. Another point is, of course, but I think Ramon, and because they have the next door lot, they will bring it to the minimum. And I agree. That's what should be done. So I'm not very much concerned with the height, as long as the balconies would be removed, in my opinion.
Okay. So should we clarify the height of the retaining wall on the north facade?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that, well, so that has been moved. Ted?
Seconder,
Aye.
second by Christina. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. The motion's been amended. Now I need one more motion. All I need is somebody to say that, move that we approve the motion as amended. And then we can do another vote. Somebody?
Somebody?
I can do it. It's Jesse.
Thank you.
Moving that we the motion as amended.
Second? Sarah, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Almost done. Item 9.1.3. Go to Aaron for any updates.
Hi, we've updated, Sean's updated the tracker with everything that we've got to date. There's one that we just recently received for the far side of Carlton Street on the west side, I think. We've got Carlton Street East on one side and another application on the west. The west has just been received and will be added to next month's tracker. That's the only added note I'd have, unless there's questions.
Do you, what do you expect us to have next meeting?
We'll be coming back with the one on Wise Road again.
Anything else?
There might be one on Tower Road that we're getting close to an addition at the back. I believe it's a level 2.
They're highlighted, aren't they?
No, I highlighted the ones that are for tonight's meeting. Those
Oh,
are-
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions for Aaron on this? No, hearing none. Date of the next meeting is July 14th, 2021. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.